Hi, this is John Wren, and this is the Startup Show. We're here each Friday at noon, and we talk about startup. Today we're going to talk about Save the Caucus, how it started in 2002, what precipitated the start, and why it's starting up again now. I am John Wren, and I am the founder and CEO, along with some 8,000 at least online people who are interested enough to at least like our Facebook page. We are taking it to the next level, and we try to help people do more good work in cooperation with local chambers of commerce, local community newspapers, anyone else that tries to help people do more good work, especially start new things, starting a new career in a new direction with your work, starting a new project or campaign, or starting a new business. And we have free open meetings that facilitate the process of some sort of a bounce. Usually something bad starts off something good if we are resilient. So there's a bounce involved usually, but then what we deal with as a art group and try to share experience around is how we start, grow, and flourish through the small business chamber method. It's really something we've observed, not invented, but the process of imagination, thinking, selling, and learning. Those are our 4 practices. And they're called practices because we all get better and better at them. As I talk to you and share my experience, I tell you things that I need to hear myself. So it's very much with that spirit that we do this. And today we're going to talk about Save the Caucus. It's something that I believe was my idea, but who knows? You know, things that are successes have a million fathers. The Rocky Mountain News named me personally in an editorial saying that with no money to spend, I had defeated Amendment 29. Well, that gave me way too much credit. There were so many good people, but I'm going to tell you how it started and why we're starting up again. At the end of our time together here in the next few minutes, I'll tell you things you could do to take a next step towards maybe helping us save the caucus. Here in Colorado or wherever you are, we're going to try to get a bigger hammer this time. We're going to reach out to other caucus states and try to have a good lobbyist in every caucus state and in Washington, D.C. So I'll tell you more about that at the end of our half hour together here. So let's get started. Save the Caucus was a political committee that was formed and then disbanded back in 2002. It was formed to fight Amendment 29, which would have finished off the caucus. The caucus was already mortally wounded because we had tried a couple of election cycles with this misguided presidential primary. And we defeated Amendment 29. Colorado went back to the caucus system, and the caucus has suffered ever since. It's never been at full strength. Most of us that fought Amendment 29 had seen the caucus prior to the presidential primary experiment, the failed experiment of the presidential primary here in Colorado. We'd seen it before that and knew the potential that it had for pulling together the neighborhood, for pulling together Colorado, really. We had a big fight with Wikipedia over what to call the article. You know, they had stuff on about Iowa, other caucus states, but nothing about Colorado. So we wrote an article and got the ball rolling, and we wanted to call the article Colorado Caucus, because that's how we talk about it here in Colorado. And I think that implies that we're all in this together. It's one caucus. There's 2 parties. There's 3,000 precincts across the state. Each of them have a couple of caucuses. So there's 6,000 caucuses, but it's all the Colorado caucus. And if you look at Iowa and go back and research it, back in 2008, pretty much everybody referred to it as the Iowa caucus. But it's clear that there's been a propaganda effort started to try to disuse Iowa caucus and go to Iowa caucuses with a small c, which indicates fragmentation. Everybody's out fighting. the Iowa Caucus connotes coming together. And I think that use of language is important. There are powerful forces that would like to get rid of the caucus system because they want to take the voice away from the average, ordinary person. And if you're concerned about that like I am, you may want to help us with Save the Caucus is being reconstituted now. And we're being reconstituted now to fight the push that started a year ago, really, with Ryan Call introducing legislation to kill the caucus. That was the system he'd been in charge of for the Republicans, and then he tries to kill it. The two state chairs are trying to kill the caucus. But we're going to stop criticizing because nothing good comes out of that. We're going to take, you sort of have to play the hands you're dealt, and we're going to take what's happening now and try to bring something good out of it. Where there is crisis, there is opportunity. And there's some sort of a bounce. And so here we are bouncing again to try to save the caucus. Let me tell you how we started back then, what we're doing now, and then finally, before our half hour together is over, what you can do to help us. So, as I said, as we began the show, my name's John Wren. I'm the registered agent for Save the Caucus now. And I did not have that role back in 2002. Let me tell you what happened in 2002. I really only wanted to attend my caucus. I'd moved. I was living in Capitol Hill in Denver, and 2 years previous, I'd tried to find my caucus. I never could find it. And so here it was in 2002, and I knew Bob Ewigan, who was one of the editorial page writers at the Denver Post, and I just happened to run into him on Colfax right by the cathedral. And I said, Bob, good to see you. I haven't seen you since I lived out in Arapahoe County. How are you? We talked. I said, I can't find my caucus. You guys used to put a list of caucus locations in. You don't do it. I can't find it anywhere. 2 years ago, I just gave up and didn't go. And Bob gave me this strange response. He said, yeah, we haven't made up our mind what position we're going to take on that. Well, that's the first I'd heard that there was anything in play about the caucus. I was just looking so I could attend mine. And I looked into it and found that this Amendment 29 had gathered enough signatures, and it looked like it was going to be on the ballot, and that it would finish off the caucus. We'd had these presidential primaries for a couple of election cycles. The caucus was a faint shadow of what it had been at one time. I couldn't even find where mine was. So I know that's true. And then, Amendment 29 was going to, and it probably should have been ended. I think Rhett Bridges had the right idea. The Bighorn Institute said, this is terrible. We need to pull the trigger and put the animal out of its misery, because the caucus does not work with the presidential primary. And there are people that perfectly well know that, and they're manipulating others into thinking that, well, but I'll tell you more about that later. Right now, just looking back at 2002, Bob Ewigan, I look into it, find out about Amendment 29, and I also found out that the Denver County Convention was like the next day. And so I made a very simple statement: if you'd like to help save the caucus that's under attack with Amendment 29, call me, and it gave my phone number. And I put one on every seat in the, I believe it was at George Washington. They were meeting, and they were going to start off in the auditorium, and I put one of those in every seat. I don't know how many there were, but there were, I think I ran out about halfway through, actually. I didn't bring enough, but I started doing every other chair. But I got one phone call, and that was from someone I already knew, because she'd helped me learn how to be a good precinct committee person. And I had gone to high school with her son. It was Joanne Gray. And Joanne was already having conversation with Sharon Klein, who was, I believe she was the Denver County chair at that time of the Democrats. And we had a meeting at Joanne's house. Bill Armstrong came, Phil Parrington, Daryl Eskin, Ruth Prendergast. I mean, there were really good people. And that was the start of Save the Caucus back then. The group met. Now, I'd learned from Karl Rove that one of the secrets to success in politics is you're better to have two fighting units than one. And the caucus, Save the Caucus, started coming together in a little bit more of a formal way, and I was not the right one to be involved any further. So much to the relief of everybody that was going to be active on the committee, I stayed out of it and just started bombarding the media with my emails, which the committee did not appreciate. And looking back, maybe it was a mistake, or maybe it wasn't. The Rocky Mountain News got the idea. I was the only one involved, apparently, so who knows? Maybe if I hadn't been doing that, although I think they were just trying to cause disunity. And when any one person gets that kind of credit, believe me, it does cause disunity. There were other people. If you're going to name one person, it probably should have been, I don't know, Frank and Sylvia Sullivan, Ruth Prendergast, Joanne Gray, Sharon Klein. You know, all these people did way more work than I did. But the Rocky Mountain News editorial names me. And that kind of ended what I saw back then needed to be done that we're going to try to do this time. But when that disunity, the Rocky Mountain News editorial, after we defeated Amendment 29, ran this editorial that said that despite being outspent 1,400 to 1, we had beat Amendment 29, 60%, 40%. And really, we just tapped into the love that the average person had back then for the Colorado caucus. You know, they'd been subjected to this presidential primary. They didn't like it. So now today's effort is different. But looking back then, I knew that what needed to happen was some sort of caucus education. But everybody except me was thinking that the political parties would do a good job of caucus education. Now, the precinct caucus here in Colorado came out of the 1910 special session that Governor Shafroth called, part of the progressive reforms back then. Now, Shafroth, it is true, probably would have preferred a presidential primary even back then, because that was kind of what everybody was caught up with. And I think some of them, like Shafroth, were well motivated. Some of them were just maybe being manipulative, just as today, and seeing that let's see, how do I get back to you guys? Sorry about that. Just a moment, please. So you can see this is a low budget operation. There we are. So I don't know if you could see me through that, but I got a phone call. I don't know how to turn that off. You know, I just barely got on the air at noon, and so I'm slightly disorganized. So let me skip ahead now from 2002 to 2016. And what happened last spring is I had just started using Google News on my iPhone, and I look at it, and that day, legislation's being introduced. I thought, well, we're dead. So I thought, well, we're dead if I don't go down there. So I headed down just personally. This was no committee. I didn't represent anyone. I was just a citizen going down there, and I called a friend of mine, Corky Kyle, and he very generously helped. And together, we were able to kill the caucus idea. The kill the caucus idea we killed in committee. Sort of an alliteration there. There may be poetry at work. I don't know. But Corky and I did that, and then sure enough, it's come up again this year. Yesterday at the Capitol, there was a pathetic event. Nobody showed up for it except the media and the people making the announcement. But the good thing is I was able to make a statement. We send out a release. You can see it on cocaucus.org. You can see the release that we sent out. And back again. Sorry about that. Oh, that's my daughter. I keep thinking my kids will one day watch this. Do you think they ever will? I doubt it. You know, my mom never watched it. But you're watching. So to wrap up more quickly, we're going to start an effort to save the caucus, and we need your help. We're going to have a steering committee meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the University of Denver Library. They now call it the Anderson Academic Commons. And that's my daughter. Excuse me just a moment. I didn't get there in time. I've only done this for, I don't know how long. You know, nobody can keep track of when I'm doing it. And, you know, truthfully, it doesn't have the biggest audience, but maybe you can pass this along. I'll be at the steering committee tomorrow. We're going to decide what to do to fight this. I'll be sharing more details. At 6 o'clock, there's Socrates Cafe. And we have several free meetings for the Small Business Chamber of Commerce. We want to spread it in conjunction with this to other economic areas in Colorado and to other states. And what we want to do is establish what should have been done back in 2002, a permanent method of welcoming newcomers to the state and welcoming newcomers to the state politics. You know, the parties don't do a good job of this because when you have all your ducks lined up, you don't necessarily want a load of new ducks coming in. And that is a major problem right now. I had been experienced in, you know, I've been a precinct committee man. I knew how to find them. I couldn't find my precinct caucus. And there needs to be something that does lobbying for the grassroots to protect the voice of the average ordinary person, which the presidential primary does not do. What it does is it stifles the average ordinary person. And it's very much Orwellian newspeak to say that this is a way to increase participation. That's an outright lie. Grassroots rules, Stanford University Press, why Iowa, which doesn't look just at Iowa, but at the caucus system, it makes the good case. And I think eventually there's going to be a limited number of caucus states and then probably a national primary. And the states are going to become the caucus state. They're going to want it. So to get rid of it right now. Now, what does make sense is to get some thoughtful people together. And that's what we'll talk about tomorrow at the University of Denver Library. I have experience. I was the first executive director of something called the Keystone Conference. Bob Tonsing, Dwight Hamilton, some others, Ralph Clark. It was bipartisan. A lot of people went to it, and it was successful. They'd take issues like the Colorado caucus and discuss them outside of the press of forming legislation. And it was mostly legislators, but also any other interested citizens, open to everybody. Free open debate. It would come to resolution debate, and sometimes a resolution was adopted, sometimes it wasn't. But we need to get that going again, and we're going to do it here in Colorado and maybe in other states. And there's other activities that we're going to be talking about. So come to our steering committee. It's going to be each Saturday at the University of Denver Library. Tomorrow's at 4 o'clock. We may move it up for the future. If you can't come and you've got questions and want to help with the Small Business Chamber of Commerce and our process, you know, our method, Small Business Chamber of Commerce method is there's some sort of a balance or recovery. Almost always something good comes out of something bad. The worst thing, I mean, it's a tremendous metaphor, if nothing else. I think it's more than that, but if nothing else, the metaphor for this is the 3 crosses at Easter. And you couldn't be any more down and out than that. And then a worldwide church that came out of that. And nobody could argue that this has been a tremendous, tremendous success. And so there's the worst situation in the world. And a lot of people find themselves in a, you know, feels like they're nailed up on a cross. And 12-step recovery programs help bounce. And so, yeah, bounce is important. We have a meeting every Monday that talks about that. How can you use the 12 steps for your particular problem? And we talk about meditation. And some people are interested in that, some people aren't. So we don't make that part of the official bill of fare. The 3 practices that we do share with the Small Business Chamber of Commerce is the thinking. And that's what we do at Socrates Cafe right after the steering committee meeting tomorrow there at the DU Library. And there's other meetings too. But that's preceded by imagination, green light thinking, chunking up, and then selling and learning. Because when we go out and sell, that's the best form. It's pay-as-you-go market research. So we have meetings for each one of those phases. They're free and open to everybody. We just ask you bring your brain for the brainstorming and that you be willing to help other people right away. And, you know, anybody that's asking for my help, is that helping me? Because pretty much anything I say to you is something I need to hear myself if it's really true. It's amazing how helping other people is the best way to find help yourself. The best way to learn something is to teach it. And self-directed learning is based on that principle. Everything we do is centered around that concept of self-directed learning. And we think we can help you do more good work. We want to cooperate with local chambers, local community newspapers, and a project of ours that's independent now and is spinning off, and the steering committee will help it tomorrow and the following Saturday. But it is Save the Caucus. It's a Colorado political committee. I'm the registered agent. And whether you're interested in the Small Business Chamber, whether you're interested in Save the Caucus, please give me a call. Love to have you on the show here with me at some point. So if you're interested, I can help you. Call me. Best is Monday or Tuesday. Anytime. If you get my voicemail, I'll get right back to you. And call me if you want to be on the show one Friday and share some of your startup experience. That's a very abbreviated account of Save the Caucus. My daughter's down, I think, at the parking lot waiting for me. We're going to have lunch together today. We're starting a new business together, and it's one of the best experiences in my life. I'm so grateful for that. So until next Friday, possibly at noon, right here where you're watching now, or by recording anytime after, you know, please forward this along to any of your friends who you think might find it helpful. But until we talk again, this is John Wren reminding both of us that this life is very, very short. So let's go get started. Thanks for watching. See you soon.